Yo, what's up everybody? How you doing? This is your Coach Renz, and in this video we're going to talk about some of the hidden symbolism, and some of it is not as hidden, of the Black Panther movie, what we can learn from it, how we move forward, and how this impacts my previous video about us going back to Africa, going to Botswana and building Wakanda. So first thing I want to throw out there is that I didn't realize this until I was watching the movie the second time. When I was watching it the second time, that first monologue where the little kid voice is like, Baba, tell me about our home. Tell me about Wakanda. That wasn't, at first, because I was so excited to see the movie the first time, I thought that was T'Challa talking to his daddy T'Chaka. You know, his daddy just telling him the story. Then I realized the second time that was actually Eric, little Eric, talking to his daddy. And I was like, oh snap, that was him passing on the connection. He's married, and he's married this American woman. They've had a baby. They got an American kid. This kid has grown up in America, and what he was doing right there was providing the connection to Africa, to Eric, to little Eric. And here's the thing about it. This is why this is so pivotal and so vital, that throughout the entire movie, the whole movie, I can pinpoint many moments of it, but throughout the entire movie, the movie had an overall tone of Africans reconnecting with their Afrocentric brothers and sisters in the diaspora. That Black Americans need to connect with the African Americans. That Africans, that Black people in England and in the Caribbean and South America and Asia need to reconnect. That we're all connected, but we've been separated. We've been separated. And that the reason why, and I'm gonna get into a whole bunch of it, is that some people recognize, those people who separate us and who continue to separate us, they recognize the hidden power. You see, Wakanda was in isolation. They were separated. Africa has been separated. Africa has the most resources. Think about it. It's the most resourceful continent in the world. Has more resources than any continent in the world. Yet has the poorest populations in the world. Sure, there are some wealthy populations, but overall has the poorest populations all around the world. And excuse me, I'm in the car because too much pollen. But they have the poorest population, but the most wealth. But that wealth is being drained. It's being drained out of Africa. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But it's being drained out of Africa. But here's the thing. Wakanda, with its greatness, was hidden. Its greatness had been hidden from the world. The world fought wars. The world conducted genocide. The world conducted sterilization. The world conducted slavery. The world conducted all these different things. And Wakanda stayed secret, stayed hidden, never allowed their power to be seen, never stopped slavery when it could have stopped slavery, never stopped wars when it could have stopped war, never stopped colonization when it could have stopped colonization. It didn't utilize its power. Is that not what Black people don't do, at least in America? We don't utilize our power. I said in the last video that everybody else wield their weapon of finances, but Black Americans don't wield their weapon of finances. I was just in an area today. Almost every store, every shop, every restaurant was owned by somebody who wasn't Black. Almost every last one of them. Only a few. But the ones that were getting the most business weren't owned by Black people. They were owned by Asians, and they were owned by Arabs. And here's the thing, I'm not mad at them. Don't get me wrong. I'm not mad at them. They see an opportunity and they go take it. They see a way that they can increase the wealth that flows into their community, and they go take it. Who I'm mad at is all the African American people who are purchasing, who are buying from other people who are taking the money out of your neighborhood. I'm mad at all the Black entrepreneurs who didn't take the opportunity, who didn't look at this place and say, I could put that business there. I can put this business here. This can be my business in a community supported by my people. What I'm mad at is that I'm mad at ourselves, because there's a hidden power. We're going to talk more about that hidden power a little bit later as well. But there's a hidden power. And Wakanda was hidden. And once you got into it, once you saw it, then you saw the power. You saw the truth. But we blinded. There was a shield. There was a fake shield. And our eyes are blinded by that. The rest of the world was blinded by that. And so when they flew in and he said, I never get tired of this. It was them flying in and seeing the true nature and the true power. He never gets tired of that true power. But they stayed hidden. And the problem is that, and I'm going to come back to the hidden as well. I know I keep saying I'm going to come back because there's a flow. There's a flow. It's not really because I'm just shooting it off the dome, but there's a flow. Because of colonization throughout Africa, because of slavery throughout the Americas and up in Europe and whatnot, because some slaves went up to Europe. Because during World War II, World War I, like for instance, World War I, and now I'm going to do more about this in a different video about the Hebrew Israelites. Because of World War I, when Germany lost World War I, all of their African colonies were taken away from them, right? And yet some black people followed them up into Germany. The Germans who was exiled from Africa, they followed them up to Germany and worked there and stayed with them, only to find themselves 20, 30 years later to be the subject of being either killed or imprisoned by Nazis. You know, they ran to Germany thinking it was going to be better, but it turned out to be worse. So, but what has happened is, we have this, and I'm sorry guys, the roof of my mouth is itching like a big dog. What has happened is that we've given up our power, we've hidden it, but more importantly, because of colonization and slavery, we've been separated, believing certain stereotypes about one another. That we've been separated and conquered, that we've been enslaved and colonized. And now we're in a situation where the media, and this is what Killmonger and T'Challa also represents, the media and history has been written in such a way that African Americans look down on Africans. African Americans look down on South American black people. Africans look down on African Americans, look down on Afro-Brazilians, look down on the black people in the Americas. We all have built this mentality of looking down on the ones who were left in Africa and the ones who were separated in Africa, not realizing we are all the same. We are all the same. The thing about Wakanda is that it was I think it was 5 or 7 tribes, but it was a number of tribes, differences, warring with one another. Is that not what is truly going on with black people from Nigeria compared to African Americans? We war. We have negative things to say about each other. Black people from the Gambia compared to black people in Nigeria, they war and they have negative things to say about each other. Black people from Brazil and black people who are from Puerto Rico, they war. They don't want to, the Latin black people want to separate themselves from being black and write that they're white and looking dark like me. You know, it's like we war against ourselves. We war against inside ourselves because we've been conditioned to think that the only things in Africa, when I was coming up, the only thing they showed me in Africa was starving children, was bushmen, was people out raising cattle, people who didn't have technology, people living in huts and shanty towns, living in tin roof housing. That's all they showed me. So of course my mentality was Africa is filled with such low levels of poverty that why would I ever want to go there? Why would I ever want to go do business there? But yet all these other foreign powers are going to Africa to do business left and right. Why? Because they convince you that you should not be going there. And I've met many Africans who, when they came to America, they came with being told that when you get there, you can't trust black Americans. You can't trust their women. You can't trust their men. They're lazy. They're shiftless. They're thieves. All these different stereotypes have been fed to them that by the time they come to America, they collect themselves in their own communities and they lock it down. Like they don't let you in. They don't let you in at all. I went to a wedding of a man, this is about 15 years ago, and she was from Zimbabwe. He was an American. It took so many years for her family to accept him. It took so many years for her tribe to accept him. because of their preconditioned thought process on black people in America. But that's been the war. That's why that's keeping it hidden. See, that's what the colonizers did. The colonizers, being few, separated the people into tribes and made them war against one another. The slave master, the plantation master, separated the house slave from the field slave and kept you warring against one another. That is how 5 or 7 white people can control 200 people, by keeping you separate and fighting. Sun Tzu taught you in the art of war that you sow dissent in your enemy's troops, that you cause them separated, that you cause them to war against themselves, and they're easily conquered. You don't even have to conquer a land when the people in the land are already warring against themselves. Titus, Vespasian's son, when Titus was surrounded Jerusalem. You can read these in the Annals of Titus, or you can read these in the Wars of the Jews by Josephus ben Matthias, or Josephus Flavius, same person. But Titus said that a house divided will fall. I know that sounds familiar to you guys in another way and from another book. But Titus said a house divided will fall. That the Jews inside of Jerusalem are warring against one another. And all he had to do was wait. Let them dismantle each other, and it'll be a cakewalk. A cakewalk. And that's exactly what happened. They actually welcomed him in with open arms when he finally came into Jerusalem and lifted the siege. And then tore down the temple. But in Black Panther, they show how even when Killmonger displayed that he was Wakandan, he still wasn't accepted because he was an American. He still wasn't accepted. Even though he showed that he was part of them. Even though he had his father's ring. He had his father's ring, his father's ring that he got from his grandfather. He had the ring. He had all the proof. He knew the traditions. He was just as knowledgeable about Wakanda as the people in the room. Hey, auntie. But I'm just saying, they still didn't want to accept him. The tribal leaders still didn't want him to be a part of them. And what did it create? Civil war. Civil war. They still fought each other. They fought each other. Why? Now, I know other people have said they fought each other, and the white man is trying to show how black people the infighting of black people. No, they fought each other as a symbolism that we are fighting one another as far as Pan-Africanism is concerned. Pan-Africanism should be huge, but it's not. Why? Because we've been conditioned to fight one another. And the media has done a very good job of that. I did write down a few notes. Now, the other aspect of it is that they showed that separation when both took the heart-shaped herb. When T'Challa took the heart-shaped herb, he's seeing his father and the lineage of Black Panthers. When they thought he was dead and he took it a second time, lineage of Black Panthers and ancestors. But when Killmonger took it to become the Golden Jaguar, what did you see? His dad in the apartment in Oakland. Yeah, he had the purple sky in the background, but his dad in Oakland. Showing that how African Americans are disconnected from our ancestors, disconnected from the land, disconnected from the people, that we have a disconnect. And some people are proud of that disconnect. As a child, I was proud of that disconnect. We used to say little stupid stuff like derogatory things, calling each other African booty scratchers. That was so derogatory and so stupid, and no adult corrected us. I had to correct myself when I got older. And I made sure that my kids never said anything like that. Because we had no connection to the land. We had no connection to the people. And the movie showed that connection is there for us. We just have to go take it. We just have to come be a part of it. We have to say that it is for us. Just as much as it is for them, it is for us. That there is no difference between the African in Nigeria in Botswana, in South Africa, in Zambia, in Gambia. There's no difference in any of them in the Ivory Coast and Ghana. There's no difference in any in Egypt, or there's no difference in the Ethiopians or the Eritreans. There's no difference in the Sudanese, the Senegalese. There's no difference in the Liberian. There's no difference in the Angolan or the Congolese. There's no difference in any of them than there is from the Black American, the Afro-Brazilian, the Puerto Rican, the ones in Mexico, the Black Mexicans, the Blaxicans. There's no difference between none of them. The ones in Venezuela, the Black Colombians. There's no difference. That we all are from the land. We all have ancestors. Yes, our ancestors jumped into the ocean because they had rather died than live as slaves. Yes, our ancestors died on this foreign soil. And I know here's a big separation, and I can see it in the comments already. We are indigenous to America. We are indigenous to America. We ain't from Africa. Find me the records. Find me where it says that we didn't come across the Bering Straits, or that we didn't sail across on a boat. Now, if you follow genetics, then you will have to say that, yeah, black people were here in America when Columbus came over. But why does your history start when Columbus came over? How about black people was here in America? They was here in America because they came across the Bering Strait because they was in China first. They left China, they came from East Africa. And then from East Africa, they came from Southern Africa. Why don't you take your history all the way back instead of starting at a point that makes you feel good and makes you feel like you're right? No human being is indigenous to America. Just like no human being is indigenous to Europe or Australia or any other place other than Africa. But we need to connect, skin folk. See, I don't like race because race is an abstract that was created to keep us separated. But if we're going to go by something, then come on, skin folk. Come on. So that was used. And that point was driven home when he only saw his father. And his father had been disconnected. Notice even his father was disconnected from his ancestors. That his father wasn't, when T'Challa went there, his father was separated. And he was showing that the Africans who do, sometimes they can get separated. But we all have to realize we're one. We're one. Now, creating that discourse. You see, discourse was created. They showed that with the Jabari, and how the Jabari were separated from all the other tribes of Wakanda. And even at the end, the Jabari was not going to help. It wasn't until the Jabari realized that their own lives were threatened before they decided to help. And that leads me into the final act of this video, of how the Jabari realized that their own way of life, their own traditions were in threat, were in danger unless they came together. And that coming together had to happen at the behest of an enemy that would destroy them as well. That he said that if you don't help us, that Killmonger will come for you next. He will come for you, and your way of life will be over. That the traditions you're holding on to will be over. If we don't wake up and realize that the separation that has been created through religion, through tribes, through nationalities of skin folk, that if we don't stop and decease with this separation and realize that we have to come in unity, that our hidden power can be revealed if we come together with a common idea and cause of just being who we are naturally supposed to be, that we are connected to the land, that our ingenuity coupled with the natural resources, because that's what Wakanda showed you, that it has such natural resources that they use human ingenuity. Every superpower in the movie was technologically based and based on nature. If we don't come together and say that you may be Christian, but it doesn't matter. You may be conscious, it doesn't matter. You may be Muslim, it doesn't matter. You may be African spiritualism, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because we skin folk, and we are all from either colonization or conquering or slavery, and we need to come back together to rediscover our power and our heritage. and stop allowing confrontation, differences of opinions, differences of what you believe, because at the end of the day, you go to your deathbed by yourself, I go to my deathbed by myself. But while we're consciously on this planet, we are together. That I went to Texas in February. I saw the Vietnamese grocery store and plaza. It was surrounded by Vietnamese people of different religion, but they all supported the community. And that's what the other thing the movie was trying to show you is community. We have to show community. Now, I love what Africa just did. Africa just signed a free trade agreement. The beginnings of the free trade agreement. 44 countries signed it. Yes, I know Nigeria still has some conversations to have. I think South Africa has some conversations to have. But they only need 22 to ratify it. But 44 have already signed that they will ratify it. So 44 African nations are saying free trade. Now, what does that mean? That means that trade borders, trade lines, tariffs, and high tariffs and difficulties to trade with one another will disappear. It means that they will look to trade with one another faster before they go outside. For instance, the countries who can't refine their natural resources, which is most of those countries, most African countries don't have the refineries to refine their own natural resources. So they send them to Asia, they send them to Europe, when they could be refining them in their own countries or in neighboring countries. And what the problem is that they don't have, Nigeria's issue is the refineries are not in Africa. So that's one of their problems, that the refineries are not in Africa. Now, imagine the financial and intellectual power of African Americans going to Africa, building refineries for different natural resources, for nickel, building refineries for nickel, for titanium, building refineries for that, for oil, building refineries for oil, building refineries for the different natural resources that they're currently shipping out. Imagine if you were able to if you're one of those people and you have it within you, you have the connections. I forgot the guy who just bought the Weather Channel for $300 million. Imagine if he'd have taken that $300 million and go to Africa and opened up a refinery, and he refined nickel, or he refined copper, or he refines iron. He goes there and he's refining products in Africa. Imagine that. Imagine that. And that's the opportunity right now. That's the opportunity. Is that I will work to create a financial power block to go and build something of that nature. To also build hospitals and schools. That's all great. But we need to build on the natural resource of Africa. You go in there, let's say we went to Botswana, and if they're, with the amount of diamonds that they have found, that means that nickel and titanium are also there. It's there. Go there and build a refinery in Botswana. Employing the people. Job elevations from the janitor all the way up to the top scientists, to the CEOs. Everything in between. Providing so much opportunity. And what people don't understand is the outgrowth around that. The housing business that booms after that. The grocery store business that booms after that. The cars, the roads, everything booms around that. Around that. And then more and more businesses will be built. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we have to do. That's Wakanda forever. That's building Wakanda. So, I know this video is a little bit longer than I anticipated. Both the Jabari, both T'Challa and Killmonger in their own way were right. There is no neither were the villain. The only villain is the colonialism and the slavery that has occurred, that has kept us separated from one another. That's the villain of the movie. The movie built community. Now, I hope you guys like this. I know this video was long and I know it was very political and passionate, but I am going to start something more fun. I'm starting a new channel. It's called What the Hell with Jeb. You know, it's WHATHAHELL with Jeb. As some of you guys know, I have an alter ego named Jeb. He does reviews. He's gonna start his own YouTube channel. Please go and join that channel. Subscribe. I appreciate it. And please subscribe to this channel as well. I love you guys. Thank you guys for listening. And I look forward to many more conversations, as I will be doing many more videos. And remember, always, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable.